Hello, class. I officially welcome you to Child and Adolescent Learners and Learning Principles, or ED 111, your first major course in the program Bachelor of Elementary Education, major in General Education. Okay, so before we proceed with our first lesson, I would like to ask you guys, assuming that you are listening to this record, um, why is it important for us to learn about child and adolescent learners and of course, their learning principles? Bakit kaya siya importante? Alright? Well, the answer is pretty obvious because as future teachers, you are going to deal with these kinds of learners. And basically, you cannot teach them effectively and efficiently if you don't know them to begin with. Okay? So saan ba magsisimula yung pagkilala natin sa mga estudyante natin? Unang-una sa lahat, class, we need to understand the nature of human development. By that, we can understand their learning styles. And of course, as teachers, we need to employ teaching styles which are appropriate to the learning styles of these students for them to have meaningful learning at the end of the day. Okay, I hope that that is understandable. Okay po. So, of course, at the end of this lesson, I am expecting you, class, that you can define human development as much as possible. Define it using your own words. Second, I am expecting that you will be able to explain the principles of human development. Third, you need to distinguish two approaches to human development. So when we say distinguish, class, we need to compare and contrast, stating similarities and differences. And lastly, I am expecting you to determine the various principles of child and development learning. Okay, so without further ado, ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng human development? No? So it is actually specified here, human development. So hindi siya development ng plants, hindi development ng hayop, but human development. Now, actually, according to Sunstroke 2002, human development is the pattern of movement or change that begins at conception and continues through the lifespan. So when you say conception, class, the moment that a person conceives another human being. So, ipinagbubuntis pa lang. Okay? And of course, it continues through the lifespan. Habang nabubuhay yung tao, nagde-develop yung tao. No? So, development, class, includes growth and decline. Okay? This means that development can be positive or negative. Okay, why is it positive, or negative? Because remember, class, also development involves change, and change can be positive or negative. Okay po. Sige. So, let's proceed to the major principles of human development. No? What are the major principles of human development? So, actually, class, in the module that I gave you, assuming that you have read it already, there are 4 major principles. Okay? So, the first one, it says here that development is relatively orderly. Okay? So, relatively orderly, it means that it follows the same structure. Sa Filipino pa, class, pare-pareho ng forma. Human development, it follows the same pattern. Okay? There are two developmental patterns that you need to take note. The first one, class, is proximodistal pattern and the cephalocaudal pattern. But I am not saying, class, that these are the only patterns of development. No? Ito lang yung binanggit ko dito sa module. No? So, but before we proceed to the discussion of these two patterns, let's discuss first, anong ibig sabihin ng relatively orderly? Okay, so normally, class, a normal human beings, no, a normal human being rather, learn to sit, crawl, then walk before you can run. So, hindi ka makakakita ng tao, class, na nauunang mag-jogging kaysa tumayo, no? Wala ding tao, of course, na normal na paglabas sa sinapupunan, tumakbo or pumunta sa kusina at saing, 'di ba? So kumain, that is very very absurd, class. So hindi yan siya pwede. So it follows the same pattern. Ano yung una nga? To sit, crawl, then walk before we can run. So the muscular control of the trunks and the arms comes earlier as compared to the hands and fingers. And this is the proximodistal pattern, class. So if you have noticed, class, bigger muscles, no, mas una nating nakokontrol yung mga big muscles compared to small muscles. Now, on the other hand, the cephalocaudal pattern, class, is manifested by the greatest growth that always occur at the top, no, and then gradually working its way down during infancy. So, kung napapansin ninyo, during our elementary and high school discussion on how the baby develops inside the womb of a mother, nauuna talagang ma-develop yung ulo ng bata, no? So, hindi ka makakakita, no? You can never see a human being na unang nade-develop yung paa kaysa sa ulo. So, nauuna yung upper part ng body pababa, okay? And again, that is what you call cephalocaudal pattern. Now, let's proceed with the second principle. Ang sabi dito, while the pattern of development is likely to be similar, the outcomes of developmental processes and the rate of development are likely to vary among individuals, even though that we follow, class, we follow the same structure, we follow the same form, but as to the result and the rate of development, diyan tayo nagkakaiba-iba. O, for example, okay? For example, if you tend to contrast your own development with your, ipagpalagay na lang natin, a childhood friend, no? So, pareho kayo, 6 years old. Okay? Pareha kayo 6 years old. So, even though na pareha kayo 6 years old, class, pareha kayo na nasa kindergarten, no? Pareha kayo babae, for example, but mayroon pa ring pagkakaiba. Ano yung pagkakaiba? Siguro mas matangkad ka kaysa sa kanya, no? Mas nauuna kang magbasa, mas nauuna kang magsulat, no? Mas active ka sa kanya, mas energetic ka compared sa kanya, no? Ipagpalagay na lang natin na yung language development ng childhood friend mo is medyo huli. No, sa edad na 6 years old, hindi pa siya marunong magsulat ng pangalan, no? So, these manifest that even though, again, no, there is a similar pattern of development, no, there are also individual differences, right? So, ito po yon. Now, it is noted here in the module that individual differences, class, can be expected in developmental characteristics and variation in the ages when people will experience events that will influence their development. Okay? So, experiences, our own experiences that influence our development. Okay? So, another example na naman dyan, class, is pagpalagay natin na si child A, no, 8 years old, itong si child B din, 8 years old, pero mas responsable si child A. Bakit? Siguro ipagpalagay natin na mas nauna siyang mawala ng magulang No, si child B naman, spoiled brat. So, even though na magkapareha sila ng edad, nasa parehong grade level, but as far as sense of responsibility is concerned, mas responsable itong si child A. Okay, so we can infer from that our experiences really influence us in a lot of things, right? So now I hope that is understandable. Let's proceed to principle number 3. Development takes place gradually. So when you say gradual, it doesn't happen in a snap of a finger. Okay? I know this is kinda a funny example, but ganito talaga class, okay? Hindi ka makaka-expect na kakasilang ng bata ngayon, hindi ka magkaka-expect na kinabukasan matututo na yang mag-crawl, 'di ba? You cannot expect as well na kaka-grade 1 pa lang ng bata ngayon and then matututo na siyang mag-algebra or mag-solve ng trigonometry problems kinabukasan. No. No? It happens slowly. So, it takes years. Di ba? Sa development nga natin, class, before we learn, how to analyze complicated things, di ba? Dumaan nga tayo sa grade 1. No? So, ilang years yung gispend natin sa school in order for us to be here in our situation right now. Di ba po? So, patience lang, class. No? Kung hindi pa natin nagagawa yung mga bagay na gusto nating gawin ngayon, patience because, of course, if not now, maybe tomorrow or in the other year. Di ba po? So, again, it takes place gradually. It doesn't happen in a snap of a finger. It doesn't happen overnight. No? Lastly, we have development as a process is complex because it is a product of biological, cognitive, and socio-emotional processes. Okay, so development, class, remember, it is never simple. Again, it is complicated because it involves many processes. Okay, so let's talk about first biological processes. So, these involve changes in the individual's physical nature. Okay? So, these processes, class, or these type of changes are more apparent compared to other processes, specifically cognitive and socio-emotional. Why? Because you can see it directly. You can see it concretely. Nakikita mo talaga yung pagbabago sa katawan ng tao. Nakikita mo na may changes sa weight, may changes sa height, no? May changes, for example, sa parts ng body, no? Especially during puberty period. Of course, I know that you know that all of us have undergone puberty period. So, for girls, part of puberty is menstruation. For boys, part of puberty is the development of the Adam's apple, the development of the muscles. No? So, I hope that you are familiar with the term growth spurts. So, during that time, class, there is a sudden growth, no? When it comes to physical, right? Sige. So, next, we have cognitive processes. So, from the term itself, cognitive involves our intellect, no? Talino. So, it involves our thought, no? Our intelligence and language. So, what we knew when we were still in elementary is different from what we know now that we are in this level. No? Kasi masyashock ka, class, kung yung alam mo, nung elementary ka pa, nung grade 1 ka pa, is the same lang din hanggang ngayon. Diba, no? So, grabe. Ilang dekada na yung lumipas sa buhay mo, pero yung alam mo nung grade 1, ganun pa rin. No, ano yon? Literal na wala talagang pagbabago, class. So, buti pa yung ekonomiya ng Pilipinas, may pagbabago, pero sa cognitive aspect, wala. Sana naman walang ganoon, class. Especially that you are future teachers, right? Now, let's go to specifics. Now, the thing is, of course, as far as our language is concerned, all of us started from uttering a single word, no? So, mama, papa. In your case, you have umi, abi. And then, from these single words, class, no? It turned into clauses, no? And then sentences until we learned how to converse using complicated sentences. Imagine that, no? And of course, let's proceed with social emotional processes. So this includes changes in the individual's relationships with other people, changes in emotions, and changes in personality. I don't know if you are doing this one, but most people I know are doing this one, no? Especially my sisters. So, ano ang ginagawa natin usually, class? Of course, mahilig siguro kayo sa social media, right? And sa social media, anong meron sa social media? There are lots of memories, no? So, nakikita mo yung mga pictures, mga videos mo dati when you were still in elementary or perhaps in high school. And hindi talaga maiiwasan, class, that you tend to compare your past self, no, with your present self. And the usual comment that I heard, no, is, grabe, ang pangit-pangit ko talaga dati. Grabe, napaka-jejemon ko talaga dati. Grabe, negrita talaga ako dati. So, that is a manifestation, class, that people change. And because we change, class, our relationships with other people, how we perceive ourselves, class, also change, no? So, masasabi natin na maybe today, mas wider na yung horizon natin. Mas maraming tao na yung kakilala natin compare dati. And siguro at some point, nagmamature na rin tayo sa pag-handle ng relationships natin. Right? So, kung dati, yung relationship mo is nagre-revolve lang doon sa anong tawag dito? For example, sa exam, 'di ba? O sige, pakopyahin kita ng math, pakopyahin mo rin ako ng English. O, hindi ganoon lang, class. Kasi ngayon, more mature na yung handle mo ng relationship in a way, class, na deep emotions and feelings na yung involved, no? So, more importantly, class, nagmamature na rin tayo sa pag-handle ng mga emotions natin. So, hindi na tayo bata na nagtatantrums, 'di ba? Alam niyo ba yung tantrums, class? When you say tantrums, when we kapag kasi yung bata hindi nakuha yung gusto, ano yung ginagawa, no? So, nagtatantrums, no? Umiiyak, no? Nag-roll doon sa floor. Kasi nagwa-wild. Yun yung tantrums, class, no? With these principles of human development, there are also two approaches involved. So the first one, class, is the traditional approach. If you believe that you showed extensive change from birth to adolescence, show little or no change in adulthood, and decline in late old age, your approach to development is traditional. However, if you believe that even in adulthood, developmental change takes place as it does during childhood, your approach is termed lifespan. Okay? So, what are the characteristics of lifespan perspective? So, Paul Baltes, no, an expert in lifespan development, gives the following characteristics. The first one, development is lifelong. Okay? So, it does not end in adulthood, class. Habang may buhay, may pag-asa. And in lifespan approach, age doesn't matter. Okay? Number 2, development is multi-dimensional. It is never simple. It is complicated. No? It is a complex process. It involves biological, cognitive, and social-emotional dimensions. Third, development is plastic. Development is possible throughout lifespan. Class, if you have watched in some documentaries or news class, may mga tao na kahit nasa 70s na, nasa 60s na, or nasa 80s na, nag-aaral pa rin. Very active pa rin when it comes to community events. Why? It's because they believe that development is possible anytime, anywhere, no? So, hindi ibig sabihin na tumataas yung edad, titigil ka na rin. 'Di ba? Kasi nga ang sabi nila, lifespan, no? Age doesn't matter. Hindi lang pala sa love, age doesn't matter, pati rin pala sa development. Okay? Next, developmental is contextual. So when you say development is contextual class, individuals change in a changing world. Okay? So ibig sabihin, our environment, our context, the circumstances that we are in influence our own development. Lastly, development involves growth, maintenance, and regulation. Okay? Growth. What do we mean by growth? Ano kayang ibig sabihin ng growth, class? Anong ibig sabihin ng growth? No? So, I hope that you know about the meaning of growth. Maintenance. What do we mean by maintenance, class? Ibig sabihin, kailangan merong consistency, no? Consistency when it comes to habits, when it comes to practices, when it comes to nutrients, and of course, regulation. Regulation is tantamount to control. Okay, so that ends lesson 1. I hope that you understand, no, the lesson. I hope that you can define human development using your own words. I hope that you can explain the principles of human development, and more importantly, I hope also that you can distinguish two approaches to human development. Now, class, it is not actually enough that we only talk about human development. It is also important to identify the various stages of human development and the developmental tasks expected, no? Developmental tasks embedded in each stage. Okay? Now, ano nga ba itong developmental task? Without further ado, class, when we say developmental tasks, these refer to certain tasks, no, that are expected of every individual. Okay? So Robert Haverhurst defines developmental tasks as one that arises at a certain period in our life, the successful achievement of which leads to happiness and success, which later tasks, while failure leads to unhappiness, social disapproval, and difficulty with later tasks. So to make the long story short, class, when you say developmental tasks, ito yung mga behaviors, no? Ito yung mga bagay na ine-expect ng society, ine-expect ng mga tao na nasa paligid natin na pwede at kaya na nating gawin sa particular stage ng buhay natin. Okay? So, I guess you can understand it better if we move on to the 8 developmental stages of human development. So, the first one, class, is the prenatal period. So, this consists, no, from conception to birth. Okay, prenatal. Anong ibig sabihin ng prenatal? Ibig sabihin, hindi pa ipinapanganak. Kaya nga prenatal. Ibig sabihin, nasa loob pa ng sinapupunan ng nanay. Okay? Sige po. So, it involves a tremendous growth from a single cell to an organism complete with brain and behavioral capabilities. Actually, class, human development is, at some point, I can say that it is magical in a way na grabe kabilis, class, especially dito sa prenatal period. Very rapid yung changes, no? Very rapid yung changes, very apparent yung changes, class, makikita mo talaga every week. And because of that, masasabi natin, wow, it's amazing. Grabe yung pag-develop ng tao. Imagine from a single cell to an organism, complete with brain and behavioral capabilities. No? Galing sa process na fertilization, sperm, and then egg cell, and then after that, magiging isang tao na merong sariling pag-iisip, capable of his or her own behaviors. No? So that is the prenatal period. Second, let's proceed to infancy. Infancy from birth to 18 to 24 months. Okay? Infancy, baby. That is tantamount to a baby. A time of extreme dependence on adults. Okay? So, a baby on his own cannot survive. Why? Because a baby cannot provide even his own needs. No, hindi niya kayang pakainin yung sarili niya. He cannot feed himself. He cannot bathe himself. He cannot even change his own diaper, right? So there is an extreme dependence on adult, no? Many psychological activities are just beginning, no? Language, symbolic thought, sensory motor coordination, and of course, social learning. So, simula pa lang. Ibig sabihin, this is the start of our exploration of the world. Okay? So, nangangailangan pa tayo ng extreme affection, guidance, and care ng mga caregivers natin. Third, we have early childhood. So, from the end of infancy to 5 to 6 years old. So, basically, this refers to us the preschool years. Young children learn to become more self-sufficient and to care for themselves, develop school readiness skills, and spend many hours in play with peers. Okay? More self-sufficient. Why? Because the child in this stage is able to control his own body na. So, nagkakaroon na siya, class, ng muscular control specifically. No? That's why, because of that, kung napapansin ninyo, class, grabe din ka-energetic itong mga batang ito. Right? So, because of this muscular control, class, playing plays a vital role on the child's development. So, for example, class, kung kayo naging parent na in the future, or for example, kapag yung tuturuan ninyo in the future or kindergarten students, it is not good na maging strict kayo masyado to the point na hindi mo napapaglaruin yung mga bata. Remember, class, kahit paglalaro lang yan, it is very beneficial in the development of the child in a way na dyan na-form yung basic values. No? Basic values such as honesty. Right? Sa pagpe-play, kailangan honest ka. Sportsmanship. Friendship, class. No? Integrity. Yun. Patience. And of course, competitiveness. So, dyan na-form yung mga basic skills. And it is really important, class, na papaglaruin mo yung mga bata. Huwag mo silang i-contain sa 4 na sulok ng classroom lang. You need to teach them how to fly on their own. Teach them how to be dependent on their own. But more importantly, it is also mentioned here that during early childhood, the child shows signals or signs of learning readiness. No? Make sure, class, na you respond to these signs. Right? So, kapag ang bata nagpapakita na ng mga signs na ready na siya, class, na magbasa, ready na siyang magsulat, then you need to address these signs. Hindi mo pwedeng pabayaan lang. Right? Kasi ang tendency, kapag na-ignore natin, class, itong mga signs na ito, ang tendency, baka mahuli yung development ng bata. No? And of course, You cannot force the child to learn something when they are not ready. Okay? Hindi pwede na 3 years old pa lang yung bata. Hindi pa nga marunong magsulat ng pangalan niya. And yet, pinipilit mo nang mag-solve ng algebra. Ano yan? Diba? Nakakaloka. Sumasakit nga yung ulo natin kapag nagsosolve tayo. How much more yung 3 years old? No? Even though that is kinda exaggerated, but, well, most parents are doing that because they want their child to excel as early as possible, no? As much as academics is important, we need to understand that there are more important things. Okay? Proceeding, we have middle and late childhood. So, this refers to as the elementary school years. So, this is where formal education starts, no? So, dito natin nalalearn yung basic, no? Basic, the fundamental skills. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and what? Ano pa kaya? Religious values, no? So, the child is formally exposed to the larger world and its culture. Why? Because the child tends to meet a lot of different people. Imagine, class, from the comfort of his family's home, and his neighborhood, the child tends to step out from his comfort zone and then expose himself to a different kind of world. A world where different people also exist. Diba? So, napaka-exciting yan na year for the child. And more importantly, achievement becomes a more central theme of the child's world and self-control increases. Right? So, dito nafe-feel ng bata yung sense of competitiveness. Why? If you can still remember in elementary, nandiyan na papasok yung mga honor rolls. 'Di ba? So, binibigyan ng stars ng teacher. Nare-recognize kapag good yung academic performance. Kapag magaling sumayaw, kapag magaling kumanta, anong ginagawa? Nire-rewardan, di ba? So, that increases our sense of competitiveness, class. Okay. So, next, we have adolescence, no? So, 10 to 12 years of age, ending up to 18 to 22 years of age. Begins with rapid physical changes, no, to the point that it is already dramatic, no? Dramatic. There is dramatic gains in height and weight, changes in body contour, and the development of sexual characteristics such as enlargement of the breasts, development of pubic and facial hair, and deepening of the voice. To make the long story short, class, this pertains to the puberty stage. No? Sabihin nyo lang sa akin, class, kung sino yung hindi dumaan sa puberty, pero nag-college na. Siguro, kung hindi genius sila yan, class, baka may problema. No? So, next, let's proceed. Early adulthood. From late teens or early 20s, lasting through the 30s. No? So, ito yung stage ko. And malamang siguro stage new. No? Ano yung developmental tasks sa stage na ito, class? It is a time of establishing personal and economic independence. So, ibig sabihin, class, hindi na tayo yung dati na always nakadepende sa mga magulang. As much as possible, we want to provide our own needs. And some feel the responsibility that they also need to provide for their family. This is the exact time, class, that we think of our own future, no? So meron na tayong plano sa buhay, no? At siguro at some point kasama na roon yung future goals na future careers natin, no? Ang iba, they want to start they start a family of their own, no? Yung iba, they are rearing their own children, no? So these are the developmental tasks in early adulthood. Now, let's proceed, class, to to the stage where our parents are in, specifically the middle adulthood. So, ano yung meron? According to the module, it is a time of expanding personal and social involvement and responsibility of assisting the next generation in becoming competent and mature individuals. Sige, so tatanungin ko kayo, ano pala yung ginagawa ng parents natin at para saan at ginagawa nila yan? No? What are they doing? So, basically, they are providing our needs, right? They are providing our needs. Why? Because they want us to be prepared for the future challenges. They are assisting. They are guiding us, the next generation, for us to become assets of the society para hindi tayo maging mga salot sa lipunan. So, yun yung ginagawa nila. Right? And through this class, they are contributing positively to the community. So, siguro hindi nila ma-pinpoint talaga, no, yung goal na ginagawa nila kasi maybe they are just thinking na it's the responsibility of the parents to provide for the children. It's the responsibility of the parents to assist the younger generation. But, kung titingnan natin, class, this influences the bigger picture, which is actually the community. And last but not the least, we have late adulthood, a stage where our grandfather and our grandmother are in. It is a time for adjustment to decreasing strength and health, life review, retirement, and adjustment to new social rules. So, this is the time, class, na ginagawa, no? Nagre-reminisce sa past, no? And of course, nag-a-adjust na din doon sa new social rules nila. Bakit? Bakit nag-a-adjust? Because, of course, kasabay class ng pagtaas ng edad, I'm not saying this is true to all, but mostly, no? Kasabay ng pagtaas ng edad ay ang paghina ng katawan, no? And this affects the productivity of the person, no? Affects in a way na limited na lang yung nagagawa niya, no? Nagagawa as far as productivity is concerned. Kasi pahina na ng pahina yung, or pa-decrease na yung energy. Kaya nga sinasabi nila na ito yung retirement stage. Okay? So, I hope that our lesson, which is about the stages of human development, is understandable. I hope that you gain something from it, and I hope that it is clear to you. And of course, class, I hope that you realize something, reflect on something as I am discussing our lesson. And more importantly, I hope that you are listening to this video record, for I know that this would be beneficial, beneficial not only in your career as future teachers, but more importantly, you tend to be reminded of important things, as we go on with our life process. Thank you very much, class.